All right. Hey, you guys. Welcome to White Glove Trucking. My name is EJ Anderson, the long haul truck blogger, also known as the happiest, kindest trucker on the road. I wanted to do a video today about dispatching. I wanted to tell you guys how I dispatch myself. Dispatching is kind of an interesting thing. I know there's probably a lot of different ways that people do this. So I just want to give you my version of how you do it, of how I do it. And hopefully you guys can use this, because the thing is, I just recently read an article on FreightWaves, and it listed some of the most popular or some of the best dispatching services you can get. And the first two they listed, the first one was 7%. That's how much it cost. And the second one was 6%. And I'm like, gosh, that is a lot of money to spend of your revenue to give away to have somebody dispatch for you. So I just want to do this video, show you guys how I do it. Maybe I can save you some money if you're able to do it yourself, or even if you can make a little more money by using some of these tricks and hacks that I've learned to maybe get a little more per load. So here we go. I'm just going to jump right into it now. Okay, so the way I dispatch myself. Now, I just pretty much exclusively use digital load boards. Now, I love using those boards. I love the convenience of it. I love not having to make a phone call every single time I want to book a load. So I like the time it saves. Now, granted, having said that, I have heard that using these digital load boards is the last resort way to get your loads. People say that like a direct contact with the shipper would be the way to go. But I like freedom. Okay, now I know that like services like load boards like DAT and Truckstop are some of the most popular ones, but I have never used a load board that I've had to pay a subscription for. Now, I know that gives me a little bit of a blind spot. I had I did a trial with Truckstop once for like a month, and I didn't book one load with them because I just did not want to have to make those phone calls to the brokers each time. So now, because I don't have DAT, I don't have access to that rate that a lot of people use, that DAT like 15-day, 30-day rate. So you can know kind of like what the load was going for in the past 30 days. So because I don't have that, the way that I do my market research is I just use all the boards that I do have, and I kind of just check through them and see where their rates are in relation to one another. And I'm assuming that these rates are going to be similar to what I would find at DAT and Truckstop. And I do have one little way that I've confirmed that I'm not too far off. And that's because sometimes when I book a load with certain brokers, they will quote the DAT rate, the DAT prevailing rate. And so you can kind of tell, as long as they're being honest, you can kind of tell what the rate they have it at and then what DAT's rate is. All right, so these are the boards that I use. So I have Uber Freight, I have C.H. Robinson, I have Echo, Coyote, JB Hunt, RXO, and Landstar. At one point I had TQL. I think that's it. Those are the boards that I have. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is give you a quick impression of each board, and then I'm going to go into sort of like my process for booking the loads. And then after that, I'm going to give you a little bit of hacks and tricks that I've learned over the few years I've been doing this. Okay, so let's start with Uber Freight. So Uber, I like Uber a lot. I found good loads with Uber. They pay quickly, which is good. I love their app. So Uber is my favorite app. So the app functionality on Uber is great. It allows you to sort of like search by different parameters that really helps your knowledge on the market at the time. So you can search by rate per mile. You can search by like deadhead, what's closest to you. You can search by the highest rate. Like you can just find out how much can I make, like what's the most I can make on a load right now. So all of that is very helpful when it comes to like booking the load. And it's very helpful in terms of getting an idea of the big picture too, which I'm going to get into in a little bit later. Uber's check calls can get a little annoying, as they seem to check calls a lot, even though I'm like a top performer, never been late, never cancel, all that stuff. I don't think they go by that. I think they just have these automatic check calls that they do every time. Okay, my next one is C.H. Robinson. So I like C.H. Robinson too. They're really good. I know a lot of people say bad stuff about C.H. Robinson, but I found it to be fine, man. Lots of loads, lots of volume. You do have to wait a little bit for your payment. I think it's 21 days, unless you do quick pay, but You know, I got other videos that talk about quick pay and factoring and stuff that I don't do. Oh, I forgot to say about one thing about Uber is that they have like foreign-based customer service representatives, which is just a little more difficult when you're trying to get something done because they have to relay information back to the account representatives here in the States. So it's just a little bit of a delay. Now, C.H. Robinson has US-based customer service representatives. So I like that. It makes it a little bit easier. Next one is Coyote. Coyote, I like a lot. Now, I don't do a whole lot of loads for Coyote, but the ones I have done have been really good. And when I look at their site, sometimes I see good loads, but lately they've had a lot of loads that have said carrier requirements. And I think you have to have a certain amount of volume for them. And I haven't met that volume. So there's a lot of their good loads now that I see that I don't qualify for. But I like Coyote. Them and Echo, I would say, probably have the most, like the best customer service feel. I enjoy talking to the people from Coyote. They seem really helpful. Yeah, I like them. The few loads I've gotten from them have paid great. Okay, next is Echo. Echo is my newest one that I've been using. I had a real seasoned owner operator that I met once tell me about Echo, and she was spot on. I like Echo, great customer service. The only thing about Echo is if you're trying to book a load, say early in the morning or late at night, they don't have representatives there to help you until they get there in the morning. So if you wake up one morning early, you want to book a load before everybody gets up at like 4 a.m., then you can't really do it with Echo. Well, you can, but if you put in a bid, you could book their book it now rate, which is usually lower. So you want to put in a bid, but when you put in a bid with Echo, if it's after hours, then you have to wait until somebody comes in before they'll see the bid and respond to it. So by that time, you might have just booked another load or somebody else might book that load. Okay, next is JB Hunt. JB Hunt is good. JB Hunt is kind of like a special case for me because sometimes early, if you look for their loads early, they put their loads at a really low rate because they want people to bid, you know, on their loads. So early, JB Hunt is low, but late, last minute, JB Hunt loads are pretty good. And I end up usually getting them last minute. Anything before that, so even if you put in a bid early on, somebody's I always get underbid. If I put in a good price on a load for JB Hunt early, most likely it's gonna get underbid. But those last minute ones can be really good. JB Hunt also has US-based customer service, which is nice. So RXO, the next one, used to be old XPO, RXO. They are pretty good. They have a lot of volume. Now, I rarely do loads with them because their rates are very low. And I haven't found any way to sort of not like with JB Hunt, you can kind of figure out a way to make them high sometimes. With RXO, I haven't really found out how to make their loads, how to get good price on their loads. I feel like I've done a few loads from them, and the loads I've done, they just happen to be pretty good. But yeah, their rates are some of the lowest of the ones I've mentioned. I would say RXO's rates are the lowest you will see. One other thing with RXO is I have had payment issues. So even though I haven't done a whole lot of loads for them, the few that I have done, I feel like a high percentage of them have had some kind of payment issue. So that's another little thing about RXO. Oh, one other thing. I did meet one driver, an owner operator, who said he got great paying loads for RXO. He and I were on the same load. I don't know if I had booked it with RXO or not. I don't think I had. But the rate that he had with RXO was higher than the rate I had with the other load board. He said that the way he got good rates with them was he had worked with one particular rep for a long time that he had a real good relationship with. And that was his way of getting good rates with RXO. So it probably is possible if you can find the right relationship. TQL, I never used TQL. I never got a good vibe with TQL. Even when I first started and the market was red hot, TQL's rates were low. They weren't comparable in the marketplace. TQL, I've just never used them. Okay, so that gives you a little sum up of some of the load boards I used. And yeah, so now let's go into sort of how I dispatch myself or how I book the loads, and sort of like my little technique, the sequencing that I use. Okay, so here's my sequence. So the first thing I want to start off with is saying, look, we all have seen, especially in this market recently, where brokers fail, convoy, and carriers fail. If you're running for some carriers to try to get some of their loads. And so there's a real risk that these things will fail and that you will not get paid for those last loads you ran for them. So having said that, so the very first thing I think about is payment terms. Now, the only load board out of all the ones I mentioned right now The only one that I have a special status with, to where I get paid in 2 days, is Uber Freight. All the rest of them are 21 days to 30 days. If you have the choice of getting paid in 2 days or 30 days, I'm going to take 2 days, especially if all the rates across the boards are pretty comparable. Okay, so the first step is start with a board that you might have special status with, that you get paid quicker with. Okay, now I always start with Uber. That exceptional app functionality that I told you about, that makes Uber the perfect app to start with to get your lay of the land, to lay of the market. Okay, so I look at Uber. I want to know what loads are close. I don't want to have to deadhead very far if I don't have to. Then I want to know what's the most that I can make. Like, so I look up, I switch it to the highest rate possible. So then I say, okay, so these are the highest paying loads in period, right? That's the most I can make. Then the next thing I want to know though is what's the highest rate per mile I can make. So I look at the rate per mile and I get an idea of, okay, so now I know the highest rate per mile, and the closest things to me. Okay, and then the last thing I look for is these medium distance loads, right? On these medium distance loads, you could get 75% of the rate for only 50% of the work. So sometimes those medium distance loads are the work smarter, not harder loads that I look for. Okay, so now we've got all that we've sort of looked at these loads on Uber. We have a general idea of all that stuff, right? Now it's time to go ahead and look at the next load boards to compare. All right, so this is pretty easy. I'm just looking for loads that are better than the loads I saw with Uber. Now with C.H. Robinson, it's a little bit interesting. So they make you do the math. They don't list the rate per mile. So and I've found this the hard way. When you just eyeball these loads, I don't know if they are talented at sort of like making it look like it's higher than it is, but like I will just eyeball it and I'll say, oh, that's close to $2 per mile. And then when I do the math, I'm like, it's $167 per mile. Like, how does that happen? So C.H. Robinson makes you do the work. You got to pull out that calculator. If I have seen an acceptable load at this point by checking Uber and checking C.H. Robinson, often I will just book at this point. Now, this is not ideal. I admit I'm being a little bit lazy here, but I will be okay if I've checked two and I feel like I've got a good idea. I'll just go ahead and book if I've seen an acceptable one. Okay, next I would check Coyote and Echo. All right, so Coyote and Echo, honestly, it's possible that me doing this video and thinking about this, it's possible that I need to change Coyote and Echo to search higher, to search them right after Uber instead of C.H. Robinson, because they really do have good loads. They just don't have that much volume, but when you do see one for them, it ends up being pretty good. So I think I might do that. I think I might start checking Uber, Coyote, Echo, then C.H. Robinson. Okay, so I check Coyote and Echo, and it's the same process. You just basically, you got this idea now of what is good, what you're looking for, what you're comparing it to. And you're just checking to see if you're checking to see, you know, a lot of times, you know, you might see an outlier, right? You might see a load that for whatever reason, it just seems to be a little bit higher, quite a bit higher than all the rest of the ones you're seeing. So you're looking for that outlier too. Okay, so if I haven't found anything yet, then I go down to JB Hunt. Then after JB Hunt, I'll check RXO. I rarely get down this far, you guys. I'm usually booking things after the first. I would say I probably book 80% of my loads just getting those first two, checking the first two boards. Like check Uber, check C.H. Robinson, and then I'm able to see something that I like and that is worth booking at that point. Okay guys, so that was my sequence of how I go through each load board. Now I want to give you just some tips and tricks or hacks that I've learned from doing this. Okay, so the first one is, so trying to go to a very specific place is not ideal for when you're using these boards. You get the best rate when you are open to wherever you go. You can just kind of like follow the rate. All right, hack number 2 is when to book. So I found that I wake up really early in the morning. So I found that I like get the best rates when I wake up first thing in the morning and I just look at the boards. So if you're a person that wakes up early, look at the boards when you first wake up. If you're a person that goes to bed late, look at the boards right before bed. So just kind of like when maybe less people are out there searching. Okay, tip number 3, waiting to book loads at the last minute is easier in cities where you can travel quickly across the city. So this would not be a good strategy in places like Atlanta, LA, New York. And I'll give you an example. The other day I booked a load, I saw a load, last minute load in New York City. It was like $500 for like 50 miles. And I thought, oh, I can't pass that up. Let's do that. I booked that load at noon, and I did not end up finishing that load until 7 p.m. because of all the traffic. So that load, which I thought was great because it was $500 for 50 miles, ended up taking up so much of the day and basically being almost like a full day's load. So you got to be careful with booking those last minute loads in places where you can't get across the city very easily. Okay, so now a lot of people know their market. They do the same route, the same lane. But if you're like me, you go all over the place, then you might not know. Like, I don't know what the rates are in every place that I go. So if you're looking to book a load, and let's say you're looking for a load a couple days out and you're not sure what the good rate would be, look at loads that pick up right then. Like for whatever time that is, look up a last second load for that moment. And that will give you the idea of what the all-in rate is, so that when you go back and you're looking for the next load 1 or 2 days out, you can know where you have room to negotiate. Okay, be careful booking loads into Denver, Florida, or Texas. Those loads have very low rates coming out of those places. So make sure you're getting the good rate going in there that compensates for the low rate coming out. I mentioned about late at night versus in the morning, but here's another one. If the market is really good, so that means the rates are high, you can wait to the last minute and the rates, you'll probably get good rates. But I found that in a tight market, which is kind of the one we're in right now, it's best to book early because there's more available and there's more options for a better rate early than late. So it just depends on how tight the market is as to whether you should book early or late. Okay, now this is my personal thing. This is not always a rational decision. Sometimes you just got to do what makes you happy. But I love not having to deadhead. Those rare times where you're either picking up like right across the street or even better, in the same facility, those are just like heaven to me. And I will take a little bit less to pay on the rate than to not have to drive anywhere to pick up the load. I know it's not always rational, but sometimes you just gotta do what makes you happy. Tip number 8. Now, don't sweat it if the load gets canceled. When I first started, I would be so upset when a load got canceled. But I found, you guys, and I swear, I don't think there's been one time where this has not happened. I get a higher paying load every single time a load has been canceled. And then not only that, a lot of times you're getting TONU, truck ordered, not used. So you're throwing on TONU on top of being able to get a better paying load. It's a win-win. So just don't ever stress when a load gets canceled. All right, tip number 9. So now as a long haul over the road trucker, I have found that my ideal week kind of looks like this. 3 loads in the week, right? A load on Monday, a load on Wednesday, and then a load on Friday for the weekend. And this goes into tip number 10, which is getting that weekend load. Those weekend loads are so crucial. They can make your week, they can make your month. Weekend loads pay more, I guess, because most people don't want to be driving on the weekend, or maybe more people don't want to be driving on the weekend. So the weekend loads pay a little bit more. So just be careful about booking a load that delivers too late on a Friday and jeopardizing your ability to get that load on Friday for your weekend. Okay, tip number 11, holidays also pay more. For holidays, I like to book a load not the day like right before the holiday. If possible, get a load that starts 2 days before the holiday, because a lot of times people won't show up on like the day before the holiday. They'll start their holiday early. I had one load when I first started, got canceled because they didn't have somebody show up. So try to get a load 2 days before the holiday starts that's across the country, the whole way across the country, that will allow you to drive through the whole holiday and then deliver the day after the holiday ends. Tip number 12, those safety weeks, safety inspection weeks, those shakedown weeks, they also pay more. So when you get one of those weeks, a lot of guys are taking off because they don't want to get inspected. Those weeks pay pretty good. So look for loads during those weeks. Tip number 13, unless I really want or need a day off, it does not pay to wait an additional day for a higher paying load. The vast majority of the time, it's better for your pocket if you just go ahead and run that load and then run another load than wait for a higher paying load the next day. And here's the last tip, you guys, tip number 14. A broker told me once, one of the representatives at one of the brokers told me that it was frowned upon at his company if the rates that got booked with round numbers like 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, because that looked like he wasn't doing his job to try to negotiate the rate down with the driver. So keep that in mind as you're booking loads. You might want to book a load for, like, if you want to get 2,000, you might want to just put 1,990 or something like that, just so you can have to, so you don't have that issue. They might be more willing to just go ahead and say, okay, we'll book it if it's 1,990 versus 2,000. And that's it. Those are all my tips, you guys. So let's see, I gave you guys some of the brokers that I use, kind of like my sequencing of dispatching myself, and then also just some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. Hopefully just one thing in here is helpful to you and helps you either maybe start dispatching yourself sometimes, or you can use it to get a higher paying load. One other last thing that I didn't say, I think, is it doesn't hurt to have, if for you guys that are hardcore on keeping your dispatcher, it also couldn't hurt to, in addition to having your dispatcher, have some of these boards to be doing your own research. This way you can do a couple of things. You can keep your dispatcher honest, okay? And then you can also, if you see loads and your dispatcher loads aren't high enough to cover their 6-7% fee or whatever it is, then you can just book with on the load board, or you can negotiate with the dispatcher. So anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully these tips were helpful, get you a little more money or save you some money. Until next time, Long Haul Truck Blogger. Thanks.